to prepare to build a form using the Form Insert panel in Dreamweaver. To get started, I'm going to create a new document. Just a simple HTML document is going to work fine. Once I get into my start page, there's some things I need to remember. The first thing I need to do is go down into my code and just hit return after my first starting body tag. I'm going to change the view of the menus here so that I can see my insert panel. And my first choice for insert panels that I can view is HTML. The second choice is form. That's the one I'm going to use today. My first choice on here is what I need to create my form. So I'm going to select form, which will add form tags into my HTML automatically. I'm going to hit return just to spread out the tags. Go to insert menu up at the top. I mean, I can also do it here by going back to HTML, but I don't think I feel like doing that. So I'm going to go up to insert menu up here, scroll to HTML, and add in a table. So to make my table work, I'm going to need a whole lot of rows. So I'm going to create 15 rows. I only need 2 columns because I'm basically doing like question and answer. So I'm going to change number of columns to 2. I'm going to change my table width to 300, although 200 would probably work because the table would expand as I put more stuff into it. I don't want my borders to be visible, so I'm going to set border thickness to 0. I'm going to ignore cell padding for now. That's the space within each cell of the table. And I'm going to change cell spacing to 10. That's the space in between each cell of the table, the window panes, if you will. And I'm going to click OK, which will give me a table. I'll make sure I am in design view up here rather than live view, because that way I can see my table. And I will make sure that my table has fallen between my form tags. So there's /form down at the bottom and the starting form tag up here. So to get started, I need to put some elements into my form. If I see this red border around the edge here and my table falls within the red border, that means that my table is within my form, just like we confirmed down in the code. So I can start making my form, and everything that falls within my form is going to be formatted within the table for structure, just to keep everything looking neat and clean. But it's all got to fall in within this red border, otherwise it won't work, because that's what makes the form work. So the first thing I'm going to do is click in my first cell of the right-hand column, and I'm going to click text and create a text field. When I create a text field, it just puts in this default label here that says text field. It's not very definitive, so I'm going to change that to name, because that's usually the first item that I like to collect from a user. I like to collect names. Sometimes I'll write first name and last name, but today I'm keeping this as simple as possible. It would help if I plugged in my mouse. I'm keeping this as simple as possible, so I'm just going to move this, if it lets me. Let's open things up a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to slide name over. Okay, fine. Don't let me use my mouse, which is plugged in. Okay, so I'm going to move this, and I'm going to copy, cut, and copy. If it won't let me just click and drag the way I usually do. Okay, so this cell contains my text box, and this cell contains the label for that first text field. As I keep going and adding in more text fields, it's just going to make labels. So it's going to say label for text field, and between the 2 label tags, I wrote name. As far as the defining features of the text field, it's just going to say text field. And as I create more, it's going to say text field 1, text field 2, text field 3. Sometimes I'll name them, sometimes I don't. So the next text field I put in here is going to be something to get the user's email address. So I'm going to use the next little form tool down, which is email, and I'm just going to make sure my cursor is inside that second row cell on the right hand column, and I'm going to click email. See if I can click and drag it this time. Oh, that's too bad. Not with the mouse either. No, can't do it. Okay. So if all else fails and your tools don't work, paste. If I want things to line up here in this column on the right-hand side, so they're bumped up against this part of the table instead of the default left-hand side, I can always hover over here, open up my Properties panel, and change the horizontal alignment from default, which is left, to right, which will make everything bump up against the right-hand side of everything in that column. Because I'm working with a limited amount of space, so I'm going to just hide my Properties panel temporarily. So the next item of information that I might collect from my user might be, well, password, which I'm not setting up that kind of form, so I don't really need a password. URL, which I do want to use, but not next. I want to get telephone number next. So telephone number, again, I'm going to cut and paste because clicking and dragging isn't working today. And you can see this all happening down here in the code as I do it. And next, I'm going to put my cursor into the cell on the right-hand column below where I just stuck in the phone number, and I'm going to do URL, which will let me put something in there or not. So select, paste. Normally, like I said, I just select things and I click and drag, and I don't know why. Dumb mouse today, not sure what's going on. So I've got a field where my user can enter a URL. And the thing with all these different things, name is a text field, email is an email field. So we can enter just about anything in a regular text field, letters and numbers. An email address, it's going to have to be an email address. So it's going to have to say something, something at something.com. Otherwise, the field isn't going to allow the user to enter something. And a warning will come up when we test it that says something like, that's not an email address. Usually the same thing for telephone. If it's not numeric, it's going to flag the user. Same thing for URL. If the user tries to enter anything into there other than a URL that starts with http:// and something.com or .edu or whatever, it's going to flag the user and let them know that they've got to put a URL in there. So other things that I can enter, I'm just going down the list. Search, which I'm not going to enter. Number, range, if I wanted to, I don't like how many pancakes have you eaten today? Oh, we'll do that. What the heck? Okay, so click in here to make sure that I'm putting it in the right place. Number, and since it's a number, I'm going to say, how many pancakes okay, and if I'm not liking the way this looks, I can always grab my table and open it up a little bit until that's spaced the way I like. So this should only allow the user to enter a number. If I confirm it in the code, yeah, it says number. Okay, so that's probably going to be a number. I can also use this color if I want the user to be able to enter a color into there. It doesn't look like much now, it just looks like a regular text box, but when we test it, and I think it's something that only works in Chrome. I don't think it works in Safari. I think it works in Firefox. I'll have to test it and see. So color will present my user with a little color box. Incidentally, as I'm going along with this, I like to save things into my Dropbox folder. And into my DMA 145 folder. Okay, that way I can save as I go. So there are other things, like I can prompt my user to enter a particular month. If I want them to pick a month or a week or a date. Week, I can't imagine what you would want to know that information for, or a time. If I think, well, we'll do date, and then we'll do time. And again, nothing's set in stone. These are just things that you can enter in here. Time. You can choose a combination of date and time. And one of the other things I like to use, if I want the user to submit a written paragraph or something that requires a long answer, I might use text area instead, because that'll give my user a little friendly looking area to type something, where I wouldn't call it text area. I would say, you know, write something. Not something that banal, obviously, but you know, pick your question, whatever you think would fill up a paragraph. So there are other things I can enter besides text area. I can put a button in if I want my user to be able to click something. Submit button and reset button I'm going to ignore for now, because those are going to be the last things that I put in there. File is sometimes useful if I want my user to attach a photo or some type of file. Okay, it will allow my user to browse their own computer and find an image and attach it to the form. Okay, so next I'm going to ignore image button for now, because it's what it sounds like. It allows me to place an image. If I've made an image that looks like a button, image button allows me to place it there. And hidden I'm going to ignore for now. But select is really, really useful, because what it does is it allows me to make either a one choice pull down menu or a multiple choice scrolling menu. So I can ask my user for something that will require only one choice. And the way this works is I had to select this and then go back to Properties panel, because this is going to use something called List Values. So if I have it selected and I open up the Properties panel, this is going to show me something in the Properties panel called List Values. Also, with any text area, with any text field, with any little item that I add in via the Form Insert panel, if I select it and then open Properties panel, I can decide whether to make it something that is a required area, like name, phone number, email address. I might make those into required areas, meaning the user can't submit the form without filling out those boxes. So that's a really useful thing to know. But for this, while this is selected, I'm just going to click on List Values, which will give me this little pop-up box where I can type in different values. And I'm just going to type in, usually for everything that I type in is the item label, I select all, copy it, and tab to the next area, which is value, and put in the same value. Sometimes the tab key allows me to create more item labels and values. Sometimes I have to use the little plus sign up here. It depends whose machine I'm working on. And I'm not saying that this makes any sense at all, what the things that I'm putting in here. Let's say afternoon. Okay, so I'm doing this really, really quickly and really sloppily as well. These are not necessarily things I'd say, it's just to show you how this works. Okay, so once I get all those values in there, morning, lunchtime, afternoon, evening, nighttime, that's fine, okay, because it gives the user only one choice. Obviously, if it's morning, it's not also nighttime. So something where, a question where there's only one choice, that works for a pull-down menu. I can also decide what the default selection will be. So right now it's at lunchtime. If I click here, it will set it to morning. I think we should start with morning. Okay, so I said you can also use that select menu to create a jump menu. Okay, not letting me click and drag today. That's too bad. So to do that, if I select this and say choose as many as applicable, and click on that, this little box here, multiple. Multiple is going to give me a scrolling menu instead of this pull down menu. So what that does is a lot of times it'll allow the user to see all the different choices that I'm offering them instead of having to click this little thing over here. The select one with the clicked little thing here is useful because that way, if I've got a limited amount of space, I might opt to use this instead, especially if there's something where it's only a single choice answer. So I'm going to select this. I'm going to do the same thing I did before and list values. Here I can't use the tab key. I have to add in stuff using little plus sign up here. So things where user can select more than one choice. Again, I'm copying, tabbing to the next. Let's see if it lets me tab. Hey, let me tab. Okay, so if I think 4 choices are enough there because, somebody can be hungry and tired, they can be okay and hungry and tired, they can also have too much work to do. They could do all those things simultaneously. I'm going to click OK. And then I've got this little pull down menu. I can decide whether or not I want to select something. I'm going to leave that the way it is. And there are some other choices that I have. If there are multiple number of choices that I want the user to see, this is also very useful. Every time I set up an exam, I use the exact same type of setup. So radio button will give just one question and a radio button. It's one of those like select it or don't. But what I'm really interested in is radio group. So making sure I've clicked in my next cell down, clicking the radio group button, it's going to give me another one of those value and label and value items. So I can leave it named radio group 1 or I can give it the name of the question, that's fine. And this is going to be, I don't know, I'll write up a question for this, but colors. So it's going to be one or the other. And again, I'm typing and selecting. This is the one that doesn't let me move to the next via tab. So double clicking required. Okay, and I'm going to set my layout using line breaks in this case because I've already got this working in a table, and putting a table inside a table is usually a bad idea. So I'm going to click OK. I'm going to write in my question over here, what color is the sky today? And incidentally, about this column, like if I don't like the default, okay, we change the default of this particular row so that the text is aligned right. If I want to also make it so that the text isn't right smack in the middle, top to bottom of my column, I can do that same thing here where I hover, change the vertical alignment from default to top. And that way, everything will be aligned with the top of the cell. Okay, so radio button groups mean the user only has one choice. They can't click multiple radio buttons in a group. If you want to give someone multiple choices, checkbox group is what will work here. So checkbox group, I'm going to just do different things that you might be carrying on you, car keys. Again, what I'm doing is just typing something, selecting it, copying it, pasting it into the next box. Phone. Yeah, I know how to spell phone. Okay, so those are some basic things. And my question is going to be where they can select more than one because you might have car keys, a notebook, a phone, and a pen and pencil. So I'm going to type today I am carrying with me. And it looks like I've run out of cells in my table. I thought I put in 15, but maybe it wasn't enough, or maybe I put some more in there, or maybe I blooped. So to add more rows to my table, I'm going to do that little trick where I've got the little arrow. My cursor turns into an arrow when I hover this way. I'm going to right click, go to table, and watch while it doesn't do anything. Oh, we're not right clicking today either. Okay, so table, let me modify my table. Okay, edit, table, insert rows or columns, and I'm going to choose below the selection. I think I need to add one more thing, one more row. Actually, we'll do 2, or, you know, if I'm feeling like I'm not sure, 3. Okay, so now I've got 3 extra rows below here. So here I'm going to put my submit button, except I'm going to change the name of the button with the button selected. Instead of submit for value, I'm going to choose send. And this is important. Form action, okay, and form method. Method is going to be post because I'm going to put an email address in here and set this up so that all this information will be gathered and dumped into the body of an email, which requires the user to send it to me. So to do this, to get it to work, I have to type a mail to in here. So I'm just typing out the words mail to, no spaces, and a colon. So MAILTO colon, and then my email address. In your case, you would put your email address in there. Okay, everything else I'm going to leave exactly as it is. And then I'm going to click in the little box over here. Wow, I just noticed that, whoops, look what happened. Hey, it stuck those things in the wrong place, even though I must have selected the wrong thing. Okay, time to shove things around. Doesn't matter where I stick it. Okay, so send button is down here. Yeah, okay, that didn't get borked. So I'm going to put my reset button over here. The reset button, what it does is it just resets the entire form. If my user decides they've made a mistake, I don't have to program it in any way. It just works the way it's supposed to. And down here, what I'm going to do is table. Wow, it's not letting me right click anything today. Okay, so table, edit, table. Not letting me merge cells either. Okay, so select again, edit, table. Okay, if I can't merge the cells, I'm not going to do this today, but I've got just about everything in there. So I'm going to save this. I'm going to close my properties panel for now and just preview it in a browser. Like I said, this will work in Chrome. Okay, so it'll open up my page and user would type their name in here. Tab would allow the user to go, like tab, when I say tab, tab key would allow the user to go from cell to cell. They can type, I mean, I've already done this, so my stuff that I've saved from before comes up in here. Telephone, URL, how many pancakes have I eaten today? I can use the, not -1, 0, so I can use the little up and down arrow here to set how many I've eaten. If I think, I don't know, 10 pancakes. I can use the color picker to pick a color, put something in there. I don't know, I kind of like, well, that's fun, rainbow. This is also fun if I want to choose maraschino. They've all got great names. Month, let's get rid of that. If I just hit the A key, April will pop up. 2017, I actually have to type the year there. I've also got these little clicky buttons here. Date, okay, so today is the 25th of 2017. And it is now 2:26, and you got to put either PM or AM into there. If I want the user to be able to write something in here, they don't have limits unless I've set one in there. That's a question. If I want to be able to choose a file, I can put one here. And it's now afternoon. My user only has one choice. Okay, so choose as many as applicable. If my user is savvy enough to do this, I know that they're an advanced computer user, they can either hold down Shift key and select a bunch of things, or use Command key to select, I'm hungry, but I'm okay, and I have way too much work to do. So they can select as many of these as they like, either clicking or selecting, if they're using a touch screen, Shift key or Command key. What color is the sky today? My user's only going to have one choice. Scroll down. And today I am carrying with me. User can select as many as they like. So notebook, phone, pencil. Okay, and then when you click send button, what it's going to do is it's going to bring up the email program with all of this information in here. So everything that the form has collected, which looks like mumbo jumbo, but trust me when I say everything is in here, and that is how you put together